Our skills are now in place, so all that remains on this page is to implement our work history section. Now our work history is going to be represented in the form of a vertical timeline, and along that timeline will be key moments in Rosie's work history, represented by dates, the name of the company she worked for, and her role. But first let's do some style changes. We want the background to match the color of the resume menu item. So let's change that in HTML. First of all, I'm going to compress down my skills section here, just so that I can make it easier to read, and expand my work history section. As you can see, the background is currently set to BG Color Personal Info, which gives us that light gray color. Let's change that and set this to BG Color Work History. We'll then copy the whole class name, go to our style.css file, up to our colors section, and paste it in. All we need to do then is just grab the background color from the menu color resume class that we created before. And this shows as well why it's good to break up your CSS file into logical sections like this. Okay, when we refresh our page then now, we can see that the background color changes to a nice strong purple. Our heading is a little bit of a problem though now. It's too dark against that purple background. So let's go back into our HTML file and adjust that. As you can see, it has a section heading class at the moment. We're going to change that to history heading. So in our CSS file, we can scroll down, and because of the fact that section heading and history heading are going to share some styles in common, we can add history heading as a class here as well. So let's just do that. And now I can grab my history heading class and go down to the bottom of the file. What I want to do first actually is just create another section here. So we'll copy the comment and paste that in. I want to have a work history section in my CSS file. And now that I've done that, I can add in my history heading class. And all I want to do in here is change the color. So I'm going to give it our familiar off-white, hashtag FAFAFA. And I'm also going to give it the bottom margin of 50 pixels just to push the content below a little bit further down so that there's some space between that and the heading. Okay, let's save that and refresh it. And that looks nice. It stands out well. And we're going to use that same off-white color with our timeline as well, so that it stands out nicely against our strong purple background. Okay, so what we're going to do in our HTML is to add a custom style called timeline item, which we'll get to in a moment. We're also going to use a custom attribute. Now you can add custom attributes to any HTML element, and in fact a lot of frameworks use that approach. You've already come across it with Bootstrap, for example, using data toggle and data target. The custom attribute we're going to use will be called dates, and we're going to set a date range that will eventually be grabbed by a style using the before pseudo element and will represent the dates along the timeline. So let's create our div now. It's called timeline-item. And in here we're going to provide our custom attribute data-dates. And we're going to set this to February 1998 to April 2004. Now it's very important when you're creating custom attributes to use the data-prefix. What comes afterwards can be whatever you like. It just makes your code easier to read for other developers and also differentiates your attribute from default built-in HTML5 attributes. So we're going to put a H4 in here, and this is going to give our employer's name, which in this case is the National College of Art and Design. And then we'll provide a paragraph, which tells us that Rosie was a sculptor in residence. Let's save that and refresh our page and see how it looks. As we can see, we have our employer and our role, but the dates don't appear because they're currently hidden and represented as an attribute. We'll fix that in a few minutes. But now we can go to our style.css and start styling up our timeline item. So here's our timeline item. What we're going to do is set the padding at the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. So it will be 4M at the top, 2M on the right, 0M on the bottom, and 2M on the left. The position of our timeline item is going to be relative. This is because we're going to have some absolute children that we want to style inside this timeline item div. Our color is our very familiar color at this point, our off-white FA, FA, FA. We're also going to add a border left. Now the border left is going to be the only border that will be displayed, and this will give the effect of our vertical timeline. So it's solid and it's 1 pixel thick. Just going to correct my little typo there, change that back to 4M instead of 43. So that's the parent timeline item style. Now let's style our paragraph, which is for the role, Rose's role and description at her place of work for that period. And what we're just going to do is set the padding and the margins both to 0. Now we can use the before pseudo element. Now what we're going to do with the before pseudo element here is to zero in and to target our data dates attribute. And we do that by using our content property. Now you can only use content with the before or after pseudo elements, and this sets the content that will appear either before or after the class in question. We're going to set the content to use the ATTR function, which is short for attribute, and then we're going to grab the data dates attribute, and so that will be the content, our dates. We're going to set the position to absolute so that we can give it a left position of 2.5M and a top position of 3M that's actually going to bring it above our employer's text. We'll set the display to block. We'll use our standard font family here for headings of EXO with sans serif if EXO fails. And I've kind of run out of jokes as to what happens if EXO fails. We're going to set the font weight to 500, which is slightly bolder, but it's going to be pretty small. We're going to set the font size to 0.8M. We're also going to clear the padding, because we don't want any padding around it, and we don't want any margins around it either, so we're going to clear those. Okay, now that we've set our before pseudo element, which is going to contain our dates, we're going to use the after pseudo element. And the after pseudo element is going to create a little disk. It's going to be a node or a circle on the timeline to represent Rosie's work history. What we're going to do with this is something similar to what we did earlier on with our social links, but in a slightly different way. So we're going to set our width, first of all, to be 12 pixels. Our height to be 12 pixels because that gives us a square. Our display is going to be set to block once again. And we're just going to set the positioning of 2.4M. Position absolute, of course, if we want to be doing this inside our relative parent div. And left to -6 pixels, which is just going to drag it out to the left slightly and make it sit centrally on our timeline border. We'll set the border radius to 12 pixels then. So there are a couple of ways that we can make things a circle. We can set the border radius to 50%, or we can set it to the height and the width of the square. We're going to set the content to an empty string because we don't want anything else to appear in there. And the background color will be our off-white FA, FA, FA to tie it in with everything else. So let's save that and refresh our page and see what we get. This is starting to look nice. We can see there that we have our left border. That's providing our vertical timeline. Our before pseudo element provides our dates, and our after provides our nice little circular node. We then have our H4 and our paragraph providing our employer's name and our role. Now once that's in place, this is very similar to our progress bars and our personal info items. in that we can just copy and paste to repeat them, which speeds up our development process. So let's do that now. We'll beautify it as we're going along. Just jumped for me there when I did the Command-Shift-B. I'm going to paste it in another twice, so we have 4 history items in total, and then Command-Shift-B or Control-Shift-B to beautify. Now, as we did with our progress bars and our personal info items, all we need to do now is change the data inside. So in this case, our dates, our employer name, and our role. Now, Rosie's had a very interesting working life. She's definitely a living example of the idea that we can have at least 3 careers in our lives in the 21st century. So she went from a sculptor in residence at the National College of Art and Design to work for a funeral directors called Fisher & Diaz, where she was a junior embalmer. Obviously, she decided on another change of career and attended the Code Institute Full Stack Web Development course, and so changed her career so that now she was working for Phantom Design in Dublin. And here she was working as a junior front-end developer. Another successful student. After that, she continued to develop her career and decided on a move to Silicon Valley, California, where she's been working from 2011 up to the present day. There she's been working for a company called Hooli in Silicon Valley as a full-stack web developer. Okay, so now that's all in place. All we've done is just change the data. We can save and refresh our page and see what we get. And this looks very nice. We can see that the information is presented well. We have a lot of information being displayed here, but it's bite-sized and easily digestible. Let's see how it looks on a mobile. And it still looks nice. We've got those strong colors tying in there, and there's decent spacing as well. Just to make sure that the spacing is always there, even if we view it on a tablet, I want to go back and group all of our timeline items together, just as we did with our personal info items and our progress bars. So I'm going to create a class at the top and call that History Items. We'll grab the closing div tag and put it beneath our final timeline item, then Command-Shift-B or Control-Shift-B. And now I'm just going to grab the class name, put it at the bottom of my style.css, and give it a bottom margin of 30 pixels just so that it always pushes it out. Okay, now that's done, let's just check one more time. And everything looks very nice here, both on mobile and on desktop. As we said, there's a lot of information, but it's very easy to digest and take in. And you might want to take this timeline and use it in your own projects as well. The only thing that's left to do then now is to add and commit our files to Git. We can see here from Git status we have 3 that have changed. So I'm going to add those and commit them with the message that we added our resume HTML content. Okay, so that's done. Our resume page is complete. The only one left is our contact page and our download CV link. We'll get to our contact page in our next video.